Hey, today's video is going to be a fast-paced guide on how to replace the AC compressor in this 2010 Nissan Rogue. This has got the 2.5 liter and this should go for like 08 to 2013. Real fast-paced video here, so if there's anything I missed or forgot, make sure to check the description down below or the comments because I'll always update that if somebody brings something up. Here we go. First step is going to be getting your new AC compressor and inspect the pulley. Make sure it spins true and straight, no play in it, that the compressor is not seized up and it has the same electrical connection as the one on there. You know, because I've taken compressors out before and then you look and you got the wrong part, and yeah. Then remove your high and low side caps and evacuate the system of Freon, unless of course you already had a substantial leak and it's empty. If you don't have an AC machine, then you can bring it over to a shop and they should be able to evacuate that for you because you don't want to let that out to the atmosphere. You're now going to safely jack the vehicle up, remove the 5 21mm lug nuts and take the passenger side wheel off. And then behind that you're going to have 6 plastic connectors, little tabs on this plastic cover, so you can just take a pocket screwdriver, pop in up on them like that, and then grab them, and we have access to, and look at that, you can tuck this wheel well back if you remove a few more of those plastic clips and 3 T20 Torx screws from the bottom of it. And now we have all this access. Here's our tensioner, so you're gonna spin that clockwise. You could use a long wrench or extension, and then you see, remove the belt from only the AC compressor. And you can tuck it out of the way like that, but make sure to check for any dry rot or cracking. Not a bad idea to replace your serpentine belt at this time anyway. That brings me to a point also, the reason we're replacing this is due to a bad clutch. So at this point, you could actually just replace the clutch, but this car has, it's like over 150,000 miles on it, and you know, for what a compressor costs with a brand new clutch, it's just a better route to go. And the way I determined it had a bad clutch is I sent power and ground to it and it wasn't engaging, so bad clutch. Now back up top, you're gonna use a ratchet with, I guess it's about a 1.5 foot extension and a 10mm deep socket to remove the 10mm bolt on the high pressure side and the 10mm nut on the low pressure side. If there's a bunch of crud around here, you might want to spray some cleaner, like I sprayed some brake clean down there and then blew it off with this long wand just because I wanted to get some of that dirt out of the way. And then if you wiggle those back and forth, you should be able to loosen them up and pull both the high and low side off of there. Inspect the connections for any severe corrosion, plug them up, and then tuck them out of the way. Now disconnect the compressor by squeezing in on that, and there you go, and remove these 2 12mm bolts. That's what they look like, and I used a 12mm ratcheting wrench, extended it with a 13 to get some leverage. Be careful when you do that, it could hurt yourself. And then zip them out with the 12mm. This is how the compressor sits in there, and you can see the bottom ones are a little bit more recessed, so I did have to use an extension like so. A little bit tighter to get to those, and I actually recommend removing those first and then the top ones. I was able to get them from the top, no problem, but you might have better access at the bottom. I zipped them out the rest of the way with the Milwaukee M12. And with those out, we should have plenty of room to slip this on through the hole. Might have to do a little finagling, a little bit, but there's plenty of room. We now want to see how much compressor oil is in here, so dump it into a cup and rotate the compressor over. This is how much came out of the old compressor, and when you pull the sticker, you can see this is pre-charged with 3 ounces. So what I'd like to do is just, I think this takes PAG 46, could be wrong though, but I got this stuff that's compatible with everything, never had a problem with it. I'm gonna take the low side cap off and add just about that much. And after adding a little bit extra, I'll put the cap back on and just leave these both hand loose. We'll leave them on until we're ready to put the hoses on so nothing else gets in there. This isn't the most precise way of doing the oil. You can look up other methods online if you want to be a little bit more thorough with it. However, I've been doing it this way forever, never had an issue. I'm basically just putting the same amount of oil that I got out of the old one into the new one. Of course, there's still residual oil in here, so you want to add a little bit extra, but this had 3 ounces pre-charged. So it's not an exact science. Just make sure you have some oil in there. Now you're gonna stuff your compressor back in there, hook everything up, reverse of removal. I'll let you know if there's any tips you need along the way. Note, if you're replacing a compressor that's seized up or has internal damage and making noise, you have to flush out the lines and maybe even add a filter for the low side because it means there's going to be dirt and debris floating around the system, and if that gets in the new compressor, it's only a matter of time before it fails again. I got that all back in. Couple tips: start with the top bolts and hand thread all bolts in by a few turns, then start by snugging the bottoms down, then the tops, and then go back and torque them all good and tight. If you know what the torque spec is, feel free to drop that in down below. So reinstall your belt, that plastic cover, and your wheel. That gets torqued to 80 foot-pounds. Pretty self-explanatory on that stuff. Now, the old compressor had a cast-in tower to secure the wire connector. However, the new one doesn't, so I just took a zip tie, put it through that bolt, and make sure to tie the wire out of the way so it's not going to get wrapped up in the belt or anything. Secure it. Your compressor should come with new O-rings, so take the old ones off with a pocket screwdriver and clean any corrosion out of that groove or any crud in there. Put the new one on. It should look like this. Make sure to use plenty of AC lubricant on it, and then we're ready to take the caps off and re-secure the lines. And make sure you don't get any dirt on them, because you don't want to pinch the O-ring. So before you go pushing it all the way down, make sure it's nice, straight and true. You're not forcing it, and then give it a good little force and it should snap into place. The old compressor had a stud and the new one doesn't, so I'll just use one of the bolts that were holding the caps on the new compressor. Before snugging the bolts all the way to good and tight, you got to make sure the connections are sitting flush and fully seated, and then we are done. So I've now hooked my connections back up, and we're going to put this into a vacuum for 10 minutes. I'm not going to show you exactly how to charge the system because, you know, I'm sure you guys don't have the same machine. However, there are many videos on YouTube, so check that out if you're doing this at home. And you can see this takes R134, of course, and it takes 1.11 pounds. So you should have a sticker on your car too. And yeah, let me charge this up. I guess I should mention, if you're doing this at home, you don't have a vacuum pump, you don't have to put it into a vacuum, but it's a really good idea too, because when this pulls it down to 29 inches of mercury, it's going to cause all the moisture to basically boil out of the system, because when we had those lines open up and that new compressor, moisture gets in there, and that's kind of a killer. It'll corrode these systems on the inside. So, you know, if you're not using the vacuum pump, it's definitely a good idea to use some kind of rubber caps when you take these hoses off, just to mitigate any humidity from getting inside the system. Just fired her up, turn the AC on. The low side's cold, the high side's hot, and it's blowing cold inside. And that'll wrap this up. I hope this video was helpful to you. Try to just be real fast-paced. Instructions for you. So drop it a thumbs up or comment down below if it helped you, and I will try to drop links to some of the stuff I used in the video, like the compressor, the serpentine belt, or that Milwaukee M12 ratchet, which is an amazing piece to have. So yeah, this is no nonsense, no how here, and I hope to see you again.